What's up, everybody? So I'm very sorry for that because I'm trying to wake up and then lunch and then quick at videos. Sorry about that. So anyway, so today this video will do reaction to today's video, but before the video start, I want you guys to make sure you okay with that. I'm going to reaction to things. So reaction to today's video, Rebooted MCU. Then we're going to reaction to We're going to reaction to Super Mario Galaxy movie first look for Yoshi. Yeah. So if you okay with that, because we're going to reaction to Super Mario first look at the end of that video. So yes. So we're going to do one video finish up with tape and then we're going to do that, right? So anyway, so now for talk to that. So 1, 2, 3 reaction.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Rebooted MCU. Today we are here with Rebooted MCU Phase 8 Part 7, and we have a very big character to introduce, so let's not waste any time and jump right into the project. The 7th project of Phase 8 is Blade, and it takes place in Universe 2037. The project opens up around 3 a.m. in downtown New York, where we see a jewelry warehouse get broken into by a mob of about 50 men. The men all carry sacks, as you watch them struggle to slide in as many rings and necklaces as they can. Only those that contain or are made of silver are placed into the sacks. After a few minutes of rushed ransacking, we hear some of the men scream as a group turns around to see a man standing in the shadow, his sword stuck to the chest of one of the robbers. He chuckles. Low-level vampires. Those who aren't even capable of holding silver without feeling some sort of pain. You guys really don't stand a chance against me. As a man begins to walk to the moonlight, we hear one of the robbers yell, "It's that damn Dampier! Get him!" As a man is revealed to be Eric Brooks, otherwise known as Blade the Vampire Hunter, played by Mahershala Ali. We watch as Blade begins mowing down the robbers, all revealed to be vampires, easily overpowering them with his mastery of the blade. We watch as a lone vampire attempts to launch himself at Blade from behind before he is slammed down by Hannibal King, played by Freddie Stroma, who says that these weaklings probably can't even stand in the sun for more than a few seconds. We then watch as a few of the vampires fall over after they are impaled by silver-tipped arrows shot by Rachel Van Helsing, played by Olivia Cook, who tells King to quit complaining as these guys are easy pickings compared to those they normally fight. We watch as the three finish off the vampires before standing around basking in their victory, with King shouting that once again the Night Stalkers have won the day. As King celebrates, Blade looks at the clothing worn by one of the men, which dons a symbol, one that Blade recognizes as the Cult of Varney. And as he stands in quiet contemplation, the title card appears.
Yay.
We got to around 6:30 a.m. in the morning as we watch the trio return to their headquarters, a drab, small, and compact space located within the outskirts of New York. King calls to a man named Lucas, telling him that as per usual, the cleanup took longer than expected. We are then greeted by Lucas Cross, by Delroy Lindo, the biological father of Blade, and the man in the chair of the Night Stalkers. We then get a bit of insight into the formation of the Night Stalkers. They were formed back in 2005 after Eric, Rachel, and Hannibal all met in Boston, Massachusetts, with the three sharing a single goal: killing vampires and preventing them from inflicting the same kind of horror that they inflicted upon the trio. The Night Stalkers took a strong vow to only operate in the shadows and only to handle threats posed by vampires. They are not heroes, they are hunters, and they act only for the hunt. This meant that as atrocities like Loki's attack on New York, the creation of Ultron, the snap, and the coming of Galactus took place, the Night Stalkers continued to work in the shadows, killing vampires while the heroes saved the world. Their identity was kept secret thanks to Lucas, who had joined the group shortly after the invasion by Loki, in an attempt to reconcile his relationship with his son, something that is still a work in progress to this very day. Lucas would use his vast intellect to hack into security cameras, police databases, and public archives, deleting any trace of the Night Stalkers in order to prevent the public from learning of their activities, also committing wire transfer fraud in order to help fund the group's activities when needed. The group would ultimately move to New York, where the population of people and vampires presented a greater risk for a vampirism outbreak if the vampire population was not kept in control, resulting in the Night Stalkers staying in New York to this very day. We then watch Blade walk up to his father, showing him the symbol found on the clothing of the vampire he fought earlier, asking him what it could mean. Lucas recounts a tale that all vampires know, the tale of the first vampire, King Varney, the most powerful vampire of all, and how he one day disappeared without a trace. But legends say that he will one day return. Blade asks if this means that Varney has somehow returned, with Rachel saying that if anybody could tell if that was the case, it would be him. Blade admits that even with his enhanced smell and senses, he's unable to properly detect the spiritual signature left behind by the vampires. Luke.
Damn it, guys.
Blossom renews your colored clothes in only 10 washes and spoils you with a delightful scent. New? No. Washed with Dylon.
Lucas tells his son that he knows there is only one woman who can give him the answer he is looking for, which causes Blade to sigh before telling his dad to get a flight scheduled to New Orleans as soon as possible. Lucas offers to accompany his son, but Blade declines, saying that Rachel will accompany him, not Lucas. With this, Blade and Rachel head off as we abruptly cut to the jewelry warehouse from the night before as we watch security officers help clean up the broken glass and return the silver objects to their proper storage containers. Outside, we see 5 hooded figures standing on a rooftop nearby. One of the hooded figures scoffs, saying that not only did the low-level vampires fail in their mission, they potentially exposed their operation to a third party. One of the cloaked figures laughs, saying that he knows who took out their pawns and they shouldn't worry, as he has fought the vampire hunter and his friends more times than he can count. Another hood figure asks if he is sure that Blade is the one behind this, which the figure confirms, but says that they do not have time to worry about Blade, as tonight they will complete the heist themselves. With this, the hooded figure drops his cloak, revealing himself to be Deacon Frost, played by Sean Bean, the man who killed Vanessa Brooks, the mother of Blade. On the flight to New Orleans, we see Rachel talking to Blade about his relationship with his father, asking Blade how much longer he is going to hold resentment towards him. Blade says that his entire career, his goals, ambitions, and life is built on resentment. Resentment towards the vampire that killed his mother, which is something his father was complicit in. He could have been present. He could have been there. He could have tried to do something to save his wife. But instead, he was busy drinking while the love of his life was bitten and killed by a vampire. Rachel attempts to empathize with Blade, saying that she understands his hatred for vampires better than almost anyone, since both her parents were killed by vampires, but encourages him not to hold on to this grudge forever. If something were to happen to his father, Blade would always regret it if he never truly made amends. A few hours later, we watch as Blade and Rachel walk inside a normal-looking floral store before they come face-to-face with Marie Laveau, played by Alfre Woodard, an apprentice of the former Hanugan Supreme Mama Jumbo and the woman widely considered to be the second most proficient Hanugan in white magic. Rachel asks Marie how business is, with Marie saying that business is slow, but she's always excited when the two come to visit, asking if they are looking to locate Frost again. Blade shows her the piece of clothing he recovered from the vampire and asks her if she can track down where the spiritual pressure originates. Marie calls for her niece, Zoe Laveau, played by Logan Browning, to gather the supplies necessary to trace back the origins of the clothing, saying sarcastically that while her former teacher didn't think that she was worthy of being the Hanugan Supreme, even she couldn't deny her ability tracking spiritual pressure. Using her white magic, Marie writes down coordinates on a piece of paper and hands it to Blade, who thanks Marie for her help as he and Rachel head out. As the two leave, Marie tells Zoe that the world is going to have to weather some extremely powerful storms just beyond the horizon. As the spiritual pressure she traced led back to a group filled with powerful individuals whose hearts are filled with the same emotion motivating Blade: resentment. We abruptly cut to the following morning just outside of the jewelry warehouse as we see that the building has been almost completely destroyed and all the jewelry has vanished. Outside we see New York Police Chief Misty Knight, played by Simone Missick, talking with NYPD officer Stacy Dolan, played by Jordana Brewster, with Knight commenting that it looks like the place was bombed or destroyed by the Hulk, with Dolan saying that she has never seen effortless destruction quite like this before. We then watch as Jessica Jones, played by Kirsten Ritter, exits the crime scene and gives the duo a rundown of what she found. She reveals that there are no traces of any explosives or any other kind of weapon that uses gunpowder to fire ammunition. In fact, it almost appears that the people who pulled off the heist were using some innate power. Not just super strength or an ability like that, something almost magical or mystical, supernatural to say the least. Dolan confirms that she believes something supernatural attacked the building, with Jessica responding that it is too inconclusive to tell, while Knight tells her to lay off the supernatural stuff. She understands what she saw with the Catch Kids messed her up, but she needs to leave that incident in the past. As Jessica and Knight walk away, we watch as Dolan pulls out the card given to her by King long ago, and dialing the number on the back, she speaks into the phone, saying that she might regret doing this, but she wants to meet with King's group later that evening. Back inside the Night Stalker's hideout, we watch as Blade slams his fist on the table, saying that he can't believe King gave out their information without consulting him first. King tries to ease the tension by saying that Blade could have at least told him about the group's trip before chewing him out, which only makes matters worse as Blade tells King to give him one good reason for making promotional materials for their group behind his back. King says that he is slowly starting to feel the group's efforts to remain hidden have become a bit excessive. Sure, when they first started, people would have been horrified at the thought of mystical hunters roaming around the streets at night. But now you have a dude who dressed in a white costume fighting mystical creatures, reports of a man who can open portals with magic, and even a dude who transforms into a werewolf. The group stands in silence before Lucas abruptly interjects that the man who can open portals is Doctor Strange, and he is extremely cool. As Blade rolls his eyes, King says that while he shouldn't have gone behind Blade's back, people knowing about the Night Stalkers might not be such a bad thing. With more vampires popping up seemingly every day, having people to work with might make their lives easier, and encourages Blade to give this opportunity a chance. Blade sighs and says that while he is still pissed, his hatred for Frost runs deeper than any resentment he could feel towards King, saying that in all likelihood he is the person behind this latest crime. Blade hands the coordinates that he received from Marie to Lucas and tells both King and Rachel to prepare themselves. For better or for worse, they will be visiting the crime scene that evening. That evening, we watch as Blade, King, and Rachel meet Dolan at the warehouse, with Dolan telling the group that she is putting her career on the line by letting them explore this crime scene. King thanks Dolan for allowing the group to help her in figuring out what happened, while Rachel begins talking with Dolan about keeping the Night Stalker's identity a secret. During the discussion, we watch as Blade slinks inside the warehouse and begins examining the wreckage. As he walks up to a large chunk of drywall, he closes his eyes and begins sniffing the air, utilizing his enhanced sense of smell in an attempt to figure out who or what is behind the attack. Back with Dolan's group, we watch as Rachel gets a call from Lucas, who says that he cracked the location given to Blade by Marie. As he says this, Blade exits the building, telling the group that he knows who is behind the attack. It's a man whose smell he can never forget as long as he lives, the man who killed his mother, Deacon Frost, like he first theorized. Rachel hangs up the phone and tells Blade that the coordinates have been solved, and they lead back to a familiar location, Deacon Frost's compound located in Berlin, Germany. With this new information, Dolan asks the group what she should do in the meantime, with Blade telling her to leave the building alone, as things just got more serious and potentially deadly than she could even possibly begin to imagine. As Dolan stands in disbelief, Blade takes out his phone and calls Lucas, telling him to get them a flight booked to Berlin immediately. As the Night Stalkers travel to Germany, we are shown a flashback to the night Blade was born, and the reason he holds such resentment towards his father and vampires as a whole. Vanessa Brooks, played by Janelle James, would face extreme medical complications when she was giving birth to her son, which would force Lucas Cross to drop thousands of dollars to bring her to a medical expert located in Germany, Deacon.
LinkedIn ads lets you target the right people.
Frost. While Frost was preparing to help Brooks with the birth, stress got the best of Lucas, and he would abandon his pregnant wife in order to drink himself to sleep at a nearby bar. Unfortunately, during the birth, Frost's ulterior motives would be revealed. He was a vampire who would lure humans into his care in order to feed, while also making thousands of dollars in the process in order to fund his lavish lifestyle. Unbeknownst to Frost at the time, the action of biting Vanessa during her pregnancy would cause Frost's vampire enzymes to be transmitted to her son, making Blade a Dhampir, a human-vampire hybrid. While Vanessa would manage to escape from Frost's compound with her baby, she would die shortly after, with Blade being taken in by the U.S. Embassy in Germany and sent back to the United States, where he would grow up as an orphan. Eric would eventually learn of both his mother's death and the identity of the man who killed her, causing him to become a vampire hunter, vowing that he would spend the remainder of his life hunting down Deacon Frost and all other vampires, ensuring that no child would ever have to suffer the pain he did. His entire team of Night Stalkers share in his deep hatred of vampires. King was another victim of Deacon Frost, who seeks to kill Frost for making him a vampire. Rachel's parents were killed by vampires when she was a child in 1985, and even Lucas would eventually become a vampire, bitten while trying to find the man responsible for his wife's death. As the flashback ends, we watch as the group arrives in Germany and prepare to come face to face with Frost. We watch as the group begin to make their way towards Frost's compound, with King commending Lucas for his skill in wire transfer frauds, and that despite the group not making any income, Lucas always manages to get them the best seats on the plane. Lucas laughs, saying that his conscience might feel bad, but if he can help his son avenge his mother, it's worth the guilt. Blade tells his father never to use him as an excuse for what he does again. This is an act of contrition for allowing his wife to be killed. While Rachel asks King why he is in such a chipper mood given the circumstances, with King revealing that he is trying to suppress the rage inside of him. If he doesn't know if he would be able to control himself when he sees Frost. Suddenly watches the doors to Frost's compound open, as we see a lone figure exit before he quickly disappears. Something that causes Blade to scream for the others to get behind him as he pulls out his sword, as we see Frost appear in front of Blade, welcoming him back to his compound. We then see Blade and Frost engage in a sword fight, with Frost commenting that he's lost count, but this has to be at least the 50th duel between the two, with Blade retorting that he would fight Frost 1,000,000 times, as long as the 1,000,000th fight ultimately results in his demise. Frost cackles at this, saying that Blade should not hold a grudge against him. Thanks to Frost, he gained all the powers of a vampire without most of the downsides. As the two continue to clash, he watches a cloaked figure exits the compound and demand that Frost stop the fight, reminding him that the four who stand before them could ultimately be useful allies in the upcoming conflict. This causes both Blade and Frost to end their clash as a hooded figure approaches the group and invites them inside, saying that she would like to discuss something important with them, dropping her cloak to reveal herself to be Lamia, played by Christina Ricci, the vampire who used to work for Mephisto. As Lamia leads the group inside the compound, the identities of the other cloaked figures are revealed. Nosferatu, played by Coleman Domingo, Saracen, played by Ian McShane, Vardalet, played by David Pasquisi, and Mergrim, played by Neve Campbell, with it also being revealed that these four were the vampires that accompanied Frost and ransacked the jewelry warehouse. When Blade asks why they attacked the warehouse, Frost reveals that the group is stockpiling as much silver as they can, as it will be used in their upcoming battle for the future of all vampire kind. King asks Frost what he's talking about, which causes Lamia to reveal that it is only a matter of time before a vampire named Dracula will attempt to not only claim dominion over all vampires, but the world as a whole. In order to stop this from occurring, Lamia and her group will attempt to release the one vampire who has the power to stop Dracula, Lord Varney. This revelation causes Lucas to laugh awkwardly, saying that he always thought the tale of Lord Varney returning was nothing more than an ancient legend passed down from vampires of old. Rachel chimes in to say that even if Varney's return wasn't mere myth, it's comical to believe that a normal vampire would be powerful enough to challenge Varney. This causes Lamia to stop as she begins to explain to the group the history of both Varney and the man who made a deal with the devil to bring him down, Dracula. After Chthon shared his demonic powers with his followers, Varney was the first vampire to be created. He was all-powerful, almighty, and his strength was second to none. He would become the king of the vampires, and would have a group of loyal retainers known as the Ancient that would serve him and act on his behalf, consisting of Lamia, Nosferatu, Saracen, Vardalet, and Merigrim. While Varney was all-powerful, he had no ambitions of ruling over anyone except vampires, wishing to be revered and praised as king, not wanting conquest or world domination. This all changed when a young vampire named Justin Drake attempted to usurp the throne from Varney. Drake believed in the total opposite of Varney, world domination, as he would constantly ask Varney why vampires should be stuck hiding in the shadows with their powers and abilities. Drake believed that vampires should use their abilities to rule over all creatures, and challenged Varney to a duel that Varney won handedly. While both the Ancient and Varney believed that this incident was minor, this notion would be quickly squashed as a few years later, Drake would return and once again challenge Varney. But this time, two things had changed. First, he no longer called himself Drake, but rather Dracula. And second, he had the backing of the new ally, the King of Hell himself, Mephisto, played by Wes Bentley. The duel between Varney and Dracula would be a clash for the ages, with both beings battling it out to the bitter end. When
your cold symptoms get worse at night, trust Vicks Vapor Rub Easy Applicator. Simply twist and apply to help relieve your sore throat, blocked nose, and cough due to cold. So you can sleep like a baby. Vicks Vapor Rub Easy Applicator.
when one thing was made crystal clear. Despite the impressive power gained by Dracula, he was still not strong enough to defeat Varney. In order to protect his client from being killed, Mephisto would use his most powerful ability, known as the power of seal, which allows Mephisto to seal any being away inside of an inanimate object, with no recourse to escape. Mephisto told Dracula that he would need to return to his castle and remain mostly dormant for thousands of years in order to build up enough strength and power to not only defeat Varney, but any enemy that he encounters. When this day would come, Mephisto would agree to release Varney and allow the duel to finally end. This is when Mephisto turned to the Ancients, saying that he needed to take out his frustrations on someone and prepared to kill the group. For Lamia would interrupt, offering herself up as a servant for Mephisto if he agreed to spare her friends, an offer that Mephisto gleefully accepted. Lamia's decision to sacrifice herself in order to become Mephisto's pawn would ultimately pay off, as during her time with him, she would learn of one power that reverses the power to seal, an ability known as the power of release. A power Mephisto is only revealed to one other being, his daughter, Malevolence, played by Maya Hawke. Lamia would secretly watch Malevolence learn how to use the power of release and would slowly begin to memorize the incantation movements and every mechanic associated with the technique, which ultimately led her to deciding to find a way to leave Mephisto and divulge her findings to the Ancient. Lamia would do this by performing her duties poorly and also making Mephisto's life harder, such as the time she attempted to bestow the spirit of vengeance to a woman named Bai Gu Jing. But when she forgot to make an exchange for the power, Bai Gu Jing used her newly acquired power known as the Spirit of Corruption to attack Hell, which caused Mephisto to give Lamia an opportunity to leave her post if she could find a suitable replacement. This replacement would eventually become a man who sought to heal his adoptive father, Johnny Blaze. When Lamia was freed, she would teach the former members of the Ancient how to use the power of release, theorizing that if all 5 members of the group managed to use the power at the same time, they could free their master and allow him to exact revenge on Dracula for attempting to defy his rule. As flashback ends, Lamia reveals that she and the other members of the Ancient now lead the cult of Varney, a group of over 2,000 vampires who agreed to aid in their quest to return Varney to power, also revealing that she and the Ancient have finally mastered the power of release, and plan to release Varney tomorrow evening in order to trigger a premature clash with Dracula, forcing him to operate on their schedule, not his, and certainly not Mephisto's. Blade tells Lamia that their plan has one major flaw. Even if they manage to free Varney, there is no guarantee that this would be enough to cause Dracula to come out of hiding in order to face their master. Frost reveals that this is where he became part of the plan. Not only has word spread about Lord Varney's return, but Frost also managed to obtain the perfect bait to draw Dracula out, revealing that he managed to capture Zarus, played by Stephen Manis, the son of Dracula. As the group stands and stares, we watch as Zarus screams and begs for his freedom, resulting in Frost punching his cage and telling him to pipe down. Lamia tells the group that they will be traveling to Warsaw, Poland, the home of the Altar of Varney, and the place where Mephisto sealed their lord for the ceremony, hoping that it will end up being the location of Dracula's tomb. Blade stands in silence as Frost tells him that for the time being their conflict needs to become a truce, as they could really use his help in their fight against Dracula, something that causes Blade to step back, stunned at this proposition. Lamia echoes the sentiment, saying that not only the future of vampires is at stake, but the world as a whole. If Dracula truly managed to gain power with the help of Mephisto, there is no telling how powerful he could become, or if there is any man, woman, or creature that could stop him. Nosferatu encourages the group to think over their decision, handing Lucas a copy of the coordinates of the Altar of Varney, as Frost and the Ancient continue their preparations for the upcoming battle. We cut to that evening inside of a cheap hotel room as we see the group discussing what they should do. King says they might need to consider joining Frost on this particular issue. If the world is at stake, they have a vested interest in preventing its destruction. Blade stands and laughs, asking King where this hero talk is coming from. Their goal was never centered around saving the world. Their mission was always to kill vampires. King asks Blade if he is hearing himself, asking if his sense of vengeance is truly clouding him from seeing the bigger picture, which causes Blade to push King, telling him to watch his mouth. Lucas raises his voice, telling his son to calm down before he does something that he regrets, which results in Blade tearing into his father, saying that he would not be in this mess if he hadn't brought his wife to be examined by a vampire, a sentiment that causes Rachel to interfere, saying that Blade's comment was out of line. Blade finally opens up, trying to comprehend what the group has been asked to do. They want Blade, a man whose entire life has been built on his desire to avenge his mother, to work with the same monsters who fuel his hatred? That is a proposition Blade doesn't know if he can overcome. The group falls silent as Rachel hugs Blade, telling him that maybe they can think of this another way. Perhaps they go as a neutral third party, and when things begin to go awry, they kill whichever group is worse. King smiles, saying that he is down for that. The Night Stalkers don't kowtow to any group, a sentiment that causes Lucas to smile. Blade stands as a faint smile crosses his face, before quickly turning into a frown as he orders Rachel and King to prepare for battle and for Lucas to get them tickets to Poland. While he doesn't know what group it will be, one thing is for certain. The following night, they will be killing vampires. We cut to the following evening at the altar of Varney in Warsaw, Poland, as we watch Blade, Rachel, King, and Lucas hide behind a nearby rock formation, with Blade telling the group not to interfere and just observe until he gives the signal. With this, we are given a shot of the group known as the Cult of Varney, a group of nearly 2,000 vampires who have staked their lives on the ultimate defeat of Dracula and the resurrection of the King of the Vampires, Varney. We watch as Xanis is placed in front of the altar, as we see the Ancient gathered on top of the altar, preparing to use the power of release to free their king. Frost stands in front of the altar next to Xanis, reminding the cult of their game plan. The Ancient will release Varney as soon as Dracula arrives. With anxious breath, we watch as minutes pass by, when suddenly, we watch 3 hooded figures approach the large outdoor venue, as the hooded figure at the front shouts to Xanis, asking how a son of his could possibly be captured by inferior vampires such as these, dropping his hood to reveal himself to be Dracula, played by Anthony Starr. We watch as the other 2 figures drop their hoods as well, revealed to be the other 2 children of Dracula, Jonas, played by Chance Crawford, and Lilith, played by Morfred Clark, who stand tall behind their father. Lamia screams at the Ancient to begin as the 5 members of the Ancient prepare the ritual to free their king. As this happens, we watch Dracula throw off his cloak and brandish his sword, with Janus asking his father if he would like any help removing the trash from the battlefield. Something that causes Dracula to laugh, saying that he has built up power for so long, he wants to see what he is truly capable of. With this, Dracula leaps into battle, moving so fast that nobody on the battlefield could see him coming. However, it soon becomes clear what happened. Dracula managed to kill hundreds of vampires. In a blink of an eye, the number of vampires who joined the Cult of Varney to fight Dracula falls from 2,000 to 1,000. As the bodies and various limbs of the vampires who were sliced fall to the ground, we see Blade and his group stand in complete silence, their mouths agape at the level of power they just witnessed. However, the silence is soon broken by the cracking of a large structure, as the Ancient managed to successfully release the King of the Vampires from his prison, as Varney, voiced by Kevin Durand, is released from his prison. As the remaining members of the Cult of Varney genuflect in his presence, Varney basks in his freedom, thanking his retainers for freeing their king and allowing him to get revenge on both Mephisto and the errand boy who thinks his head is big enough to wear his crown. Dracula smirks, asking Varney if he feels a king who remains complacent with his power truly deserves a crown, which causes Varney to say that he always felt that weak men start wars over petty differences in their ideology, noting that perhaps, this day, he is not much different than those weak men he used to mock, as Varney flies into battle. However, he watches the Ancients surround Dracula, saying that he will not be able to make it to Varney without getting through them first. Dracula smiles at this as we see Verdelet step forward and attempt to impale Dracula, but before he can, Dracula punches him so hard that his eyes pop out of their sockets as he falls over dead instantly. Nosferatu is the next to go, attempting to duel Dracula, only for Dracula to rip the scalp off of his head and slicing his body straight down the middle, splitting it in 2. Mergrim attempts to cast a spell to stop Dracula, but he slices off her hands and eventually her head. Dracula then throws his sword through the face of Saracen before landing in front of Lamia, apologizing to Mephisto for being the one who gets the opportunity to kill his most annoying servant before he slices her directly through her stomach. As with little effort, the entire Ancient are wiped out. This causes Varney, Frost, and the remainder of the Cult of Varney to swarm Dracula. After watching the bloody display, Blade unsheaths his sword, telling Rachel and King that they have one mission: kill Dracula at all costs as they leap into battle. The Cult of Varney members all charge Dracula, brandishing swords made of silver, the silver stolen from the jewelry warehouse, but even this isn't enough to cause Dracula even a slight inconvenience, as he cuts them down with relative ease. The next obstacle he faces is Deacon Frost, who manages to put up a valiant struggle against Dracula, even landing a hit with his sword powerful enough to cause Dracula to stumble backwards. This hit causes Dracula to smile before he steps up and lands a powerful slash on Frost, causing his sword to break and his body to split in 2, killed in one slice. In the immediate aftermath of Frost's defeat, we watch as Varney swoops in and lands a massive hit on Dracula, which sends him flying across the room, before he stands, dropping his sword and screaming at Varney, telling him to unleash hell upon him as he will give him a free shot. With this, he watches Varney performs multiple extremely deadly attacks on Dracula, slicing his stomach, piercing him with his fangs, and throwing his body into the surrounding architecture before flying into the air and slamming him into the ground. As the dust clears, he watches Dracula struggles to stand, which causes Varney to laugh at his arrogance, saying that even if Dracula's body managed to withstand that fall, the poison from Varney's fangs will cause his body to disintegrate within a matter of seconds, boasting that this is the power of the rightful king of the vampires. However, a smile crosses Dracula's face as he screams in joy before licking the blood from one of the pierce marks left by Varney, telling him that his power is absolutely pathetic before picking up his sword and charging Varney, slashing him with incredible power and sending him flying across the room. As Varney lays defenseless, Dracula prepares to land a final blow on the king, before suddenly he is pushed back by an unknown force. Dracula regains his wits as he sees a new challenger standing in front of Varney, Blade.
What if you could correct yellow tones in real life, not just on socials? Colgate Max White Purple Reveal with color correcting technology.
Dracula stands with a massive groan in his face, asking the name of the man that stands before him. Blade responds that the only thing he needs to know is that he is a vampire hunter, and Dracula is his prey. Dracula asks Blade how he can consider himself a vampire hunter if he is currently choosing to protect one. Blade stands silent before saying that he will kill Varney next, but for now the bigger threat is Dracula. Dracula quickly launches himself at Blade, with Blade somehow being able to keep up with Dracula better than anyone before him, causing Dracula to laugh hysterically. Dracula lands a blow that sends Blade flying backwards, which causes him to stumble over, an opportunity that Dracula takes to launch himself at Blade as fast as he can to deliver a finishing blow, before being thrown off course by King, who flies into Dracula's side. Dracula snarls and punches King across the room, telling him not to interfere in his game, which gives Blade an opening to slice Dracula's back. Dracula turns around and unleashes a powerful flurry of attacks on Blade, leaving Blade to merely block the attacks with his sword in order to avoid death in the onslaught. Dracula once again pushes Blade across the room before launching an energy slice at Blade, saying that it was fun while it lasted, but he can't waste any more time on him. As the energy slice makes contact, the screen turns white. But as the picture slowly returns to the screen, we see Dracula standing with an arrow lodged in his forehead, and a shocked Blade who stands in disbelief, seeing Rachel standing in front of him. Having taken Dracula's attack head-on, her lifeless body falls to the ground as she sacrificed herself to save Blade. Lucas peeks from behind the rock formation and stares in disbelief as Blade crawls over to Rachel, unable to make a sound as he sits in complete disbelief and despair over what just occurred. Dracula walks over to Varney and slices his head clean off, picking up the decapitated head of the former vampire king to take back to his palace. As this is going on, we see King struggle to stand as he witnesses Lilith and Janus free Zarus from his chain, before Janus asks his father if he would like them to kill the stragglers. Dracula declines their proposition, turning to Blade and telling him that he made this pointless trip worthwhile, managing to even be more entertaining than Varney. Blade continues to sit, unable to speak or move, as Dracula continues to try and get a response from him, saying that he should be proud that he managed to keep up with the king of the vampires, and soon the king of the world. As Dracula and his children walk away, Dracula tells Blade that he expects him to continue training and to challenge him again someday. And if he manages to put up a good showing, Dracula will consider allowing him to live when his global conquest commences. As Dracula and his kids leave, Lucas runs over to Blade, sitting next to his son, as King hobbles over and stares at Rachel's mangled corpse. While the trio are silent, Lucas manages to mutter a single phrase: "I'm sorry, son." A phrase that causes Blade to embrace his father, hugging him and weeping. The final total from the battle between the former King of the Vampires, Varney, and the new King of the Vampires, Dracula, resulted in 2,000 plus casualties, all killed by the new King of the Vampires, Dracula. We cut into the New York sewers a few weeks later as we see Blade working out while Lucas times him. King slowly walks to Blade and asks what he is doing, with Blade telling King to get ready. He's going to be training as well. A confused King asks Blade what he is talking about, with Blade taking a break from his reps, admitting to King that he thinks he has been viewing his life and the Night Stalkers as a whole wrong this entire time. Blade tells King that he assumed that every vampire was like Frost, bloodthirsty monsters who wanted nothing more than to feed on humans and deprive them of their life. But this generalization was wrong. Like in all things, there are good vampires, like King, and bad vampires. His new goal is to continue the hunt, but this time from a new angle, only attacking those vampires who truly mean to do harm to others. King smiles, asking Blade when they start hunting down these vampires, with Blade saying that this is for a later date, as for now, they need to train for one reason and one reason alone, to kill the new king of the vampires and avenge their friend. King nods and joins Blade in lifting weights as the screen cuts to black. In the first post-credits scene, we watch Blade and King working out as the two hear footsteps emanating behind them. As the two figures draw closer, they are revealed to be Wong, played by Benedict Wong, and Jericho Drum, aka Brother Voodoo, played by Malachi Kirby, with Wong asking if the duo is the vampire hunter Blade and his associate Hannibal King. Blade asks how the hell the duo managed to find them, with Voodoo revealing that an acquaintance managed to point the duo in their directions, saying that Marie wanted to express her heartfelt joy that Blade managed to survive his mission in one piece. Blade laughs, saying that if Marie sent them here, the man in front of him must be the jackass she is always complaining about. Voodoo sighs, saying that Marie really can hold a grudge before Blade cuts him off, saying that the two men can tell Marie that he appreciates her concern, but he's in the middle of something extremely important and has nothing else to tell them. Suddenly, more footsteps are heard as a voice says that he believes the duo does have information that is pertinent to them. As a figure walks into frame, it is revealed to be Stephen Strange, aka Doctor Strange by Benedict Cumberbatch, who says, "I want you two to tell me everything you know about Dracula."
Needing a little extra comfort? Try Vicks Vapor Shower. It transforms your shower into a Vicks spa with soothing vapors. Discover the Vicks Vapors range with Vapor Shower and Vapor Bath.
Yes! Yes!
In the second post-credit scene, we cut inside a compound just outside of New York as we see Mark Spector, played by Oscar Isaac, Jack Russell, aka Werewolf by Night, played by Gael Garcia Bernal, and Man-Thing, voiced by D. Bradley Baker, playing cards while Elsa Bloodstone, played by Laura Donnelly, clutches the Bloodstone, telling the group that something feels off, which causes Russell to tell her to relax and have a drink to blow off some steam. Elsa smiles, telling herself that maybe she does just need to take time to herself and relax before a honking sound fills the room from outside, as a man bursts into the compound, revealed to be Damien Hellstrom, played by Georgie Farmer, who shouts for Mark. Mark springs up and embraces Hellstrom, who just finished his round trip on Route 66, saying that he has a surprise for him. This is when Hellstrom hands Mark two new nightsticks, revealing that this time they are made of netheranium, the material of demons. Hellstrom tells Mark that he hopes he enjoys his new weapons, also handing him a bag filled with extra netheranium before taking off once again, telling Mark that if he needs him, he can find him chilling in Hawaii. And that is Blade, and yes, a new King of the Vampires has finally...
Yeah, so that's the Blade finish. So right now we're going to watch Super Mario, the first one for Yoshi. Yeah. So hope everyone okay with that. So yeah, so I already 1 to 3 reaction. No.
You're here!
Now, where's the troubled pipe?
Yeah. Run! Yes!
The scared guy anymore. Yes, I am! Never gonna change!
There's the problem.
Wait.
Hey. It's all right.
Georgie! Yes!
dinosaur just shows up and he's now part of the group.
Cool.
Let's go. Yeah, so I can't wait to see the Super Mario movie, Super Mario Galaxy movie coming on April 2026. Yeah, so I think it was let me check. The first April, yeah, sorry about that thought. Yeah, so 13 April because it's Friday, yeah. So hope you enjoy the video, mate. Hope you enjoy the video and the 2 videos. Reaction to Blade JTV video maybe the same if you say Blade and then there's some Mario Galaxy movie, yeah, so anyway, so we'll see you next time. Bye.